Get a stage? Well, okay, so how was your guys' 4th? You have a good 4th of July? All right, well, I had an all right 4th. It was pretty good. We saw some fireworks. Hopefully you got to be real American this weekend and go light up some fireworks. This is going to blow my nose. I'm going to do this. Thank you, though. The most American thing I've ever experienced in my life was I was actually at a funeral one time, and the pastor was praying at the end of the funeral, okay, sober time to be praying at the end of the funeral, and he's praying for the family, and he goes, Lord, I just pray that you would comfort this family, and he's going on, and then at the end of his prayer, he goes, and God bless America. And it took me so off guard. I literally was just, my head just shot up. I'm like looking around, I'm like, what did he just say? He just throw in a God bless America at the end of his prayer right there? It's amazing. He's passionate about his country. He's awesome. Okay, so over the next few weeks, we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I figured we've been in Mark, and I'm just going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to be in one page in the Bible, and that is in Psalm 139. So if you have a Bible, turn to Psalm 139. I love this chapter. We're just going to camp out here. It has so much to say. Specifically, it puts its finger on some of our deepest longings in our heart, some of the deepest longings in your heart. Specifically, it puts its finger on your longing to be known and understood. This psalm puts its finger on your longing to not be alone. Some of us are desperate for a desire to not be alone. You struggle with loneliness. This psalm speaks to that. It speaks to your desire to change as a human, to not just be the same, but to actually change into somebody else. And so over the next couple of weeks, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to look at this psalm and flesh out these deep longings that are in our psalm. And I'll just start with some homework. It's some pretty simple homework. My challenge to you is I want you to read this psalm, Psalm 139, every day over the next 3 weeks. Every day. Can you do that? Yeah. Every single day, I want you to read this psalm. And actually, if you got a family, read it with your family. And I guarantee that as you do that, this psalm is just going to start to come alive to you. Okay, so that's my challenge to you. My homework right at the beginning is to read that psalm every single day. And so if you have it open, look at it. Today, we're just going to look at the first 6 verses. That's it. Okay, I want you to read the whole thing, but I just want to look at the first 6 verses. And I want to start with this, how this psalm talks about our longing to be known. Look at verse 1. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all of my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. So here's a question. Who is the most famous person that you know? Who's the most famous person that you know? Anybody want to shout out a famous person that you know? Who? Mary says she knows Trump. Okay, well, she knows him. Okay, so here's mine. On the same line, Mary, I know Barack Obama. Did you know that about me? I know Barack Obama. Do you believe me? I know him. Here's what I know. I know that he is the 44th president of the United States. I know he's the first African-American president of the United States. He's 62 years old, which is basically a child compared to what we might get this year. His birthday is on August 4th. I know Barack Obama. Do you believe me? Of course not. Of course not, because you know there is a major difference between knowing facts about somebody and actually intimately knowing somebody and actually knowing who they are. That desire to be known and to be understood, it's a defining quality in a human. It's something that actually defines you as who you are as a human. For instance, what happened in your heart the last time somebody mispronounced your name? Have you ever had that happen to you before? So my name is John Patrick Nemmers. As a child, I hated to be called by my middle name. I did not like it at all. I had this one older gentleman who used to go to my church, and he would always come up to me, and he'd call me by my middle name, except he'd call me John Paul. He'd go, "Hey, John Paul, how you doing?" I'm like, "Look, pal, I already don't like to be called by my middle name. If you're going to call me by my middle name, at least get it right." You've been called by your wrong name. It's especially hurtful when it's somebody who should know you, and they call you by the wrong name. Even if it's innocent, something happens in your heart that it hurts, and the reason is because you realize they don't actually know me. They don't actually know me very well. In our heart, there's something that happens in our heart. Our heart wants to be known by others, by somebody, to be truly known. That's true on one hand. On the other hand, your heart is scared to death of being known. Absolutely horrified of somebody actually knowing who you are, isn't it? So we call that the Instagram filter effect. Right? It's the idea that if somebody actually knew what your unfiltered life looked like behind closed doors, they would never look at you again, right? They'd be like, "Yikes, I am out here." So what do? Well, we filter. We filter our life and what it looks like, and we hide who we really are, who you really are, because you know there's something really dark inside of you. There's something really dark inside of your heart that you do not want to be found out. And so the question this morning is, okay, well, what if? What if there was someone who truly knew you, knew everything about you? He completely knew you, but he did not run away at what he saw. That's the question this morning. What if there was somebody who truly knew you, yet they did not run away at what they saw? Would that not be the relationship that you were created for? That's what the psalmist seems to think in our psalm, in the first 6 verses here. And I just want you to look at how this author, who's David's the author of this psalm, how he describes someone who has a relationship with this God. It's really amazing. Just look at it. Verse 1 says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me." You've searched me, David says. That means to investigate. It's this picture. You've probably all seen detective movies, right, where they have the papers and the pictures and the notes spread everywhere, and they're up studying all night. They got coffee out. This is what David's saying here. God has investigated your soul. Okay, have you ever studied really hard for a test? Some of you are like, "No, never studied hard for a test." I have at least once. I remember one very vivid study time that I had. I had to study really hard. I'll tell you what, that next morning, I could have told you everything about that topic. Everything about that topic. Now, I may have forgotten the next day, right? But I studied and I knew everything about that topic. This is what David's saying. He's saying God knows, he has investigated your soul. He knows everything about you, and yet he never forgets. But David just doesn't say he searched your soul. He says he knows your soul. He uses that word 6 times. He knows your soul. It's the Hebrew word yada. And it's not just a factual word, it's an intimate word. It shows intimacy. One of the first times that that it's used in the Bible is Genesis 4:1, which says that Adam yada Eve. He knew Eve, and she bore him a son, which really is this beautiful language when you think about it. It's this beautiful language that pictures God's intimate understanding of not simply what you are, but why you are that way. Why you are the way that you are. He knows you. He doesn't just analyze you. He actually knows you intimately. And the beginning of verse 2 and the beginning of verse 3, look at the beginning of those two verses 2 and 3. He says, "You know when I sit down and when I rise up." You know when I sit down and when I rise up. And the beginning of verse 3 says, "You searched out my path and my lying down." Now these verses are on parallel with each other because to sit down or to lie down is a picture of where you're settled in life. And to rise up, it's an action picture of getting up and traveling on the path, the journey of life. And really, you could summarize everyone's life in this way. Every one of your lives I could summarize in this way. Your life is either action-packed, where there's so many things going on in your life, it is just boom, boom, boom. So you can't get away from all of the action in your life. It is either action-packed or nothing seems to be happening. You are either sitting down or you are on the move. And so where are you at in life this morning, coming here in the auditorium? Where are you at? Are you someone who is sitting down? Or are you someone who's on the rise, someone who's on the move? Where is your life at? Maybe you're someone who's sitting down. Maybe you're looking at your life right now and you're wondering, honestly, am I going anywhere? Like, am I going anywhere in life? Am I truly going to accomplish anything in my life? Maybe you're stuck at the same job, but you desire something greater. Maybe you're single, but you desire a spouse. Maybe you are a parent that just wants to see some progress out of your children. Well, if that's you, then what I want you to see, and what I think David wants you to see, is that God knows. He knows, and He understands why He has you sitting down right now. He understands. God has investigated your life, and He knows that right now you need to be sitting down. Now, the negative side of people who are sitting down is the people who are sitting down in life often turn into the people who are discontent in life. They're the people who are sitting down and they just end up shaking their fist at God, saying, "God, why don't you do something different? Why don't you do something more in my life?" And you end up just becoming discontent. Well, what Psalm 139 is trying to teach you is that if you are sitting down in life, wishing that you were on the go, will you trust that God knows? Will you trust that God completely understands why He has you where you are at? And maybe, just maybe, He's trying to teach you something. And for some of you, maybe He's trying to teach you contentment. That's what Paul says in Philippians 4. He says, guys, I have learned to be content in all situations. Maybe you're sitting down, but maybe you're on the go. Maybe you are on the move. Your life is so action-packed right now that there are so many things coming into your life. Everything is just absolutely crazy, and you are about to lose it, right? Little behind the scenes, that's the Nemmers family right now, okay? Son rolls down the aisle just this morning, cracks his head open. He's getting stitches right now, okay? That's our family. That's like every other day, something crazy happens, and we got to go run and go do something. And this is our life. Our life is on the move. We are on the path. And interestingly enough, this is exactly where David was at when he wrote this. Most people believe that David wrote this psalm while he was being chased down by his enemies. So yes, David, he understands. He is on the move right now. And if that's you, I just say this: God knows. God knows. He has searched out your path verse 3 says. He searched it out. He has investigated your path. It reminds me of when I was on a wilderness trip and we have to carry these giant canoes and they're so heavy and they're miserable and you end up just like questioning your entire existence when you're doing these things. And so I'm holding this canoe and I'm going through this forest and but you got a partner. Partner's right next to you and he goes before you and he searches out the path in front of you just to tell you what it's like. This is what David's saying here. If you have a relationship with this Creator, if you have a relationship with this God, there is nothing that you are going through or nothing that you will go through that God has not already searched out, that He has not already gone on ahead of you and searched out what He has and why He's taking you on this action-packed pathway, this action-packed journey right now. And maybe if that's you and your life is just absolutely wild right now, maybe God is trying to teach you to rest in the middle of your action. That's what He's always doing throughout Scripture. He's always trying to teach you, Israelites, you need to rest. In the midst of all of this chaos, you need to rest. You need to look at what I've done for you and rest in this. And I think Elizabeth Elliot said it best when she said, God makes us walk when we want to run. He makes us sit still when we want to walk. For He has things to do in our soul that we are not interested in. I love that line. He's got things to do in our soul that we're not really interested in. And so where does God have you? Whether He has you sitting down or on the run, do you know? Will you trust that God knows exactly what He is doing? What I love about the psalm is David doesn't just stop with your outer circumstances. He actually says, God doesn't just know your outer circumstances, He knows your inner circumstances. Look at the end of verse 2 and verse 4. The end of verse 2 says, you discern my thoughts from afar. Verse 4 says, even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. Your thoughts and your words in your mind, God knows them. So here's another question. Have you ever been misunderstood? Have you ever been misunderstood? It's easily one of the most frustrating things to ever have happen. I was sitting in a room full of people one time, and this guy just got frustrated with where the conversation was going, and he just stood up, he kicked the chair over, and he looks at all of us, and he goes, nobody in this room understands me. And I felt that, right? I knew what he meant by that. It's really, really hard to be misunderstood, but look at what this psalm is saying. Think about this. Your Creator, God has never once misunderstood you. Not once has He ever misunderstood you. Not one desire, not one passion, not one thought has crossed your mind that God has not fully understood and known where your heart was at. Now, on one level, that can be comforting. On another level, that can be kind of scary. I mean, just think about that for a second. Your Creator knows everything about you. Everything that you did last week. Everything that you thought last week. Every word that you not only said, but will say. How comfortable would you be if I played the audio of everything you said and you thought this past week in church? How comfortable would you be if I just said, Greg, we're getting out the audio next Sunday and we're just going to listen on in? That would easily be the most interesting church service we ever had. Maybe we should do that. I don't know. I think all of us would be uncomfortable. And I think the reason would be because it would reveal just how hateful, how bitter, how adulterous, how envious, how much murder is in our own hearts. This is why Jeremiah 17:9 says, apart from God, our hearts are deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Listen, I'm just going to be honest. If your best friend, the person that you were closest to, knew every evil thought that you had last week, they would probably keep their distance this morning. Yet I want you to think about this. God, your Creator, fully knows your heart. He fully knows everything inside of your mind, and He has a completely different reaction. He does not run away from your mess. He entered it. And this is, guys, this is where Christianity just takes a complete right turn from every other religion. All other religions say, look, our God is omnipotent, He's all powerful, He's all knowing, He's all of these things, but only in Christianity where will this God fully know everything that is going on in your mind, and He will not keep His holy distance. He will actually enter into your mess. This is exactly what your Creator did. He did not stay distant from your mess. He came down into your mess, and this is who Jesus is. This is who Jesus is. He is your Creator who knows your heart. And He actually enters into your mess. And this is what's so beautiful and so hopeful about the gospel, is that your sin does not make God see you as a lost cause, but as a lost child in need of salvation. All other faiths go, look, buddy, if you've sinned, you're a lost cause. You have to somehow scratch your way up to the top. You have to somehow make yourself perfect. Not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible says the exact opposite. Your sin does not make God see you as a lost cause. He sees you as a lost child. And He is a father who desperately wants His child back. And that is what Jesus came to do. Jesus came to actually save you from these things. He came to actually give you the relationship that you were created for. To be fully known, completely known. Every single thought, every single deep desire and passion in your heart, good or bad, He knows you. And yet fully forgiven. Fully forgiven if you know Jesus. There's not a sin that has not been washed over if you know this Jesus. And then eventually fully changed. Completely and utterly changed into a new human. And verse 5 says that this should be a great comfort to you. Verse 5, David says, you hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand on me. This is a picture of you in the middle and God's protection all around you. I got 5 kids, and my kids all climb on me. Dad's a jungle gym. That's just what happens when you're a dad. And so they're all climbing on me, and it's this picture of sometimes my youngest will get underneath me, and of course I don't want him to get crushed, and so I'll push up, right? All the kids are on top of me, and I'll push up, and I will have this protective covering over my youngest son. This is a beautiful picture. This is a beautiful picture, which means that if you have a relationship with this God, with the God that knows you, anything that wants to get to you must go through God first. It's got to go through Him first. And that's what Jesus said in John 10. He says, look, anybody who has believed in me, I have saved you, I have put you in my hand, and there is not a single soul that can snatch you out of my hand. Not a single soul. This is the God that knows you. And the question is, do you know Him? Christian, are you coming to know Him even better day by day? Unbeliever, so those of you who are in here maybe contemplating Christianity, contemplating Jesus, do you know Him? I was 19 years old, and I don't think I've told this story before, or maybe I have. 19 years old, and I was living at home with my parents, and I had to walk into the living room where my mom and dad were both at, and I had to tell them that I had gotten my, at the time, girlfriend pregnant. I was horrified, absolutely horrified to tell my parents this. Because as soon as I did, my dad, he knew me. He knew what was going on behind the scenes. He knew what was happening inside my heart. And so all of these thoughts started to go through my head. Will he reject me? Will he get rid of me? Will he dislike me because of all these things? But just like David says at the end of verse 5, he says that God puts his hand on you. And just like our Heavenly Father, what my dad did is the exact same thing. He brought me in, he laid his hand on me, we cried together, and he said, "Son, I forgive you. I forgive you." And he brought me in, we cried, we prayed together, and he comforted me with his love. This is the heart of your Father. This is the heart of your Heavenly Father. He knows you. And yet, even though he knows everything about your heart, he does not run away at what he sees. He's drawn to you. It's called compassion. He is drawn to your sin. And he wants to put his hand on you. And he wants to completely forgive you. I'll end with Jesus' words. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. That is the question for you this morning. Do you know him?